The diplomatic complex in Beijing stood like a marble fortress, washed in soft morning light, its polished glass walls reflecting the silhouettes of visiting officers arriving from across Asia. Delegations streamed into the Grand Conference Hall, uniforms crisp, medals neatly aligned, each step heavy with the pride and authority of their respective nations. Conversations overlapped in a mixture of languages, strategies, alliances, new equipment, shifting regional power. Inside, a large panoramic screen displayed military maps of rugged terrains, mountains, valleys, dense forests. The conference aimed to strengthen cooperation between Asian forces by sharing tactical knowledge. But beneath the polite greetings and formal bows, tension simmered quietly. Some nations came to learn. Others came to prove dominance. Among those attending was the Philippine delegation, led by Colonel Ramon Santos, a man known not for size or intimidation, but for sharp instincts, calm leadership, and an uncanny ability to read people and terrain like open books. Many who underestimated him later regretted doing so. He knew today would not be easy. As the Philippine team began presenting their mountain and jungle warfare doctrine, chatter slowly faded. Strategies appeared on the holographic display, ambush patterns, infiltration routes, survival techniques honed through centuries of guerrilla heritage. Some officials watched with genuine curiosity. Others whispered behind hands, unconvinced. Then, as if on cue, the tension crystallized into a single moment. A loud, dismissive laugh thundered through the hall. General Wang Jiaming, tall, imposing, and carrying an aura of unquestioned authority, rose abruptly. His laughter echoed in the quiet room, sharp enough to slice the air. Officers shifted in their seats. Nobody wanted to be caught between pride and insult. With all courtesy intended, General Wang began, though nobody believed the phrase for even a heartbeat. "I cannot help but question the practicality of your doctrine." His voice was deep, practiced in commanding battalions and intimidating underlings. How do you expect soldiers of modest physical build to carry out advanced infiltration? Your forces are significantly shorter and lighter than modern combat standards prefer. A few attendees exchanged nervous glances. Some pretended to read their notes. The Philippine officers sat upright, eyes steady, refusing to respond emotionally. General Wang waved a hand toward the Philippine slides as though shooing away a trivial idea. "Your troops lack the reach and strength for hand-to-hand encounters. Equipment designed for elite fighters would burden them. And you suggest we adopt techniques from units who struggle with physical load. Impossible. Combat favors dominance, presence, intimidation." "Basic principles," murmurs rippled across the seating rows. Some nodded out of habit, others out of fear of contradicting a powerful Chinese general. Yet a few officers, particularly from countries familiar with small unit jungle warfare, watched quietly, withholding judgment. Colonel Santos felt each word, but not as an insult to pride. Instead, as confirmation of something deeper. Outsiders still did not understand Filipino soldiers. They evaluated height and weight, never spirit and instinct. But he kept his silence until the laughter died. Finally he rose, his movements composed and deliberate. "General Wang," he said, his tone respectful but firm, "there is only one way to resolve this difference in understanding. Why not conduct a joint field exercise? Your best against ours. Real terrain, real conditions, a full tactical simulation." The general's smirk widened, as if victory had already been handed to him. "A demonstration? You believe it will favor you?" He laughed again, and this time the room joined him, some willingly, others reluctantly. "Very well, choose your best men. Bring whatever tactics you consider effective. We will meet you on your terrain. Let the outcome speak for itself." And so a challenge was forged. What began as an insult would soon become the most talked about military exercise in the region. Months later, the Philippine Scout Rangers arrived in the jungles of Mindanao to prepare for what they knew would be a defining moment. These soldiers, lean and quiet yet lethal and disciplined, had been molded by the most unforgiving terrain in Southeast Asia. They trained in humidity that suffocated, among insects that never slept, and in forests where visibility collapsed into walls of green. To them, this wasn't just an exercise. It was a chance to reclaim dignity that had been dismissed by a laugh in Beijing. Meanwhile, China deployed its elite mountain division, towering soldiers honed in the harsh altitudes of the Himalayas. They carried cutting-edge gear, night optics, heavy armor, and a reputation polished through decades of high-altitude operations. Their commanders believed the jungle would merely be another environment to dominate through force. Observers from the United States, Australia, Japan, and several European nations arrived at a temporary command post overlooking the vast forest. Many expected the Chinese forces to overpower the Filipinos with ease. Others remained cautious. Jungle warfare obeyed no conventional rules. The Chinese division entered the jungle with precision that looked almost cinematic. Their advanced drones rose into the sky, scanning the canopy. Thermal sensors swept the forest floor. The troops moved in coordinated formations, heavy boots compressing moss and leaves, as they secured a base camp and established a strong perimeter. Everything followed textbook doctrine. Create dominance through visibility, strength, and structure. But as their operation expanded deeper into the forest, something became clear. The Scout Rangers had vanished. Not a sound, not a rustle, not a heat signature, not even a shadow. It was as if the jungle itself had swallowed them. Reports sent to General Wang's command tent described a ghost presence. Tracks erased, trails silent, traps non-existent. Experienced mountain soldiers grew uneasy, not afraid, but unsettled by the unfamiliar. Socrates once wrote of warriors who could become part of their environment. The Scout Rangers were living proof. At dawn, odd incidents began piling up. A supply cache went missing. Not a chaotic raid, an organized removal. Items gone without disrupting a single vine or footprint. A Chinese sentry swore he heard something behind him, turned, and found only darkness. Others reported radios glitching at critical moments. Cable lines seemed to stop working, though the equipment was intact. Frustration tinged the voices of commanders. General Wang's voice crackled over the communication line, anger carefully suppressed. How can small units elude full surveillance? Increase patrols, expand sweeps. They cannot hide forever. He believed it. His soldiers believed it, but the jungle did not. The Scout Rangers used techniques older than recorded military manuals. Breathing patterns that muffled sound, foot placement that left no trace, camouflage that used the forest's own texture and color rather than artificial patterns. They traveled through passages too narrow for larger bodies to maneuver. They moved in silence, while Chinese gear clanked and snapped branches. They scaled trees swiftly, waited motionless for hours, and communicated through signals the Chinese sensors could not detect. The Rangers weren't hiding, they were watching. By the third day, the elite Chinese mountain troops had covered large swathes of terrain, yet found nothing. Exhaustion began creeping into their movements. Humidity weighed heavily on their uniforms. Sweat soaked through their gear. The undergrowth scratched at exposed skin. General Wang demanded updates every hour. His frustration grew, not because he doubted his soldiers, but because he couldn't understand the enemy's strategy. How can they disappear? This defies logic. But it didn't defy logic, it defied arrogance. While Chinese units pushed forward in large groups, the Scout Rangers moved like whispers. They climbed overhead branches, used fallen logs as tunnels, and sometimes crawled beneath roots to move unseen. The jungle welcomed them as old friends. Chinese soldiers were visitors. Visitors who were too loud, too heavy, too dependent on machines. Then came the moment that shifted everything. At sunrise, Chinese soldiers returned to their central base to check their flag, only to find a different one waving proudly. The Philippine flag fluttered above their camp, mounted perfectly where theirs had been. Gasps rippled across the command center overlooking the jungle. Observers surged towards screens, replaying the feed in disbelief. No alarms had been triggered. Guards had been posted. Sensors were active. Yet somehow, the Scout Rangers had infiltrated the most heavily guarded zone, replaced the flag, and retreated without a trace. General Wang stared at the flagpole, lips parted, unable to reconcile the image with everything he believed about warfare. For the first time, doubt seeped into the elite Chinese formation. What else could the Filipinos do? That doubt turned into reality as the Rangers struck. Not with violence, not with aggression, but with precision. Like forest spirits emerging from vines, Scout Rangers appeared long enough to tag a Chinese soldier with a paint marker before melting back into greenery. Some came from above, dropping silently from branches. Others crawled through mud-covered tunnels. A few emerged from behind massive tree trunks, startling even seasoned fighters. Chinese troops, larger and burdened with heavy gear, struggled to maneuver quickly. Their size, once seen as an advantage, slowed them in tight spaces. Their reach, once impressive, couldn't compensate for reaction speed hampered by weight. The Rangers' agility turned the battlefield into a playground of deception, feints, misdirection, sudden appearances, and vanishing acts. Morale shifted. Those who had mocked the Filipino size now found themselves unable to counter them. By the final day, the Scout Rangers held the entire operational zone. They had secured both flags. They had marked large portions of the opposing force in the simulation. Their victory was absolute. When the final horn sounded, silence washed over the field. Chinese officers stood frozen. Observers whispered among themselves, overwhelmed by what they had witnessed. Colonel Santos approached General Wang calmly. Dust-covered yet collected, he extended his hand. "In this terrain," he said quietly, "strength is not measured in height, it's measured in belonging." General Wang took a long moment before replying. His voice carried humility absent in Beijing. "I underestimated you." And for the first time, he meant it. News of the exercise traveled quickly. In military circles, it became a case study in tactical adaptation. The United States requested the Scout Rangers conduct instructional programs for American Special Forces. Australia sought long-term joint training. Japanese officers incorporated Filipino small unit strategies into urban jungle warfare simulations. Even NATO circulated confidential analysis of the Rangers' methods. Their doctrine became a subject of research in academies across Europe and Asia. The jungle warriors, once mocked for being too small, had become world-renowned instructors. Even in China, things changed. General Wang returned to Beijing and wrote a classified report that corrected long-held misconceptions. He explained with uncharacteristic honesty that China had misjudged jungle warfare entirely. Physical size meant nothing in terrain that rewarded stealth, adaptability, and intuition. His words altered future Chinese training modules. Terrain specialization became a focus. Weight distribution equipment was redesigned. Silence and camouflage were prioritized over brute force. The Scout Rangers had not only won an exercise, they had reshaped military thought across continents. Years after the Beijing conference, Colonel Santos was asked about the insult that started everything. He smiled gently, not with bitterness, but with reflection. "That moment taught me something important," he said. "Never allow someone else's opinion to become your identity. We always knew what we were capable of. We just needed the world to see it." The Scout Rangers didn't triumph because they were small. They triumphed because they understood the terrain. They respected the jungle, moved with it, breathed with it. They turned every assumption upside down and reminded the world that warfare is not decided by who is larger, but by who adapts faster. In a world obsessed with strength, they proved that true power comes from mastery. And in the heart of the jungle, mastery belongs to them.